The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hola, ¿qué tal? Buenos días. Mi nombre es Juan Carlos Gómez. Yo me encargo de las operaciones de ventas de Attunity en Latinoamérica. Les doy la bienvenida a esta sesión, a este seminario en línea de modernización y automatización de integración de datos. Quien va a hacer la demostración de nuestra solución Compose es Joel Dodd. Él es nuestro Analytics Data Architect y también está con nosotros Doug Jauregui, que es Senior Solutions Consultant, y él nos va a ayudar con la moderación de este seminario y también nos va a ayudar con el tema de las preguntas y respuestas técnicas. Esta sesión se está grabando. Va a ser posteado un link en el grupo Attunity Latinoamérica en LinkedIn para que puedan descargarlo y verlo a su conveniencia. Eh, pues sin más, vamos a hacer una pequeña introducción. Ya todos están viendo mi pantalla que dice modernización y automatización de la integración de datos. Y después de esta breve introducción, pasamos directamente con Joel Dodd ya para la presentación de Compose. Bueno, un poco la idea es platicarles acerca de nuestra plataforma. Attunity ha sido definido por los analistas independientes como el líder en integración de datos, ya que podemos entregar en tiempo real información a streaming, cloud platforms, data warehouse y data lakes. Attunity tiene tres grandes diferenciadores. El primero de ellos es que es precursor en la tecnología CDC. Como ustedes saben, CDC es la tecnología que nos permite leer del log de la base de datos y replicar los cambios en un target o en un destino. Nosotros tenemos la base de fuentes y destinos más amplia del mercado y bueno, ofrecemos una solución de principio a fin, desde extraer los datos operacionales hasta la parte de Business Intelligence, Machine Learning, etcétera, etcétera. Nosotros somos líderes en la nube porque tenemos una relación muy estrecha con los tres grandes proveedores, Amazon, Azure y Google. Hemos migrado más de 100,000 bases de datos a la nube para ellos y no es que podamos escribir datos en una de sus nubes, sino que estamos muy bien integrados con todas sus ofertas en cada una de ellas, ¿no? Attunity tiene una plataforma que se rediseñó hace poco y tiene mucha automatización. ¿De acuerdo? Esta automatización simplifica mucho el trabajo y nos permite tener un tiempo para mercado mucho más rápido que con herramientas que se desarrollaron hace 20 años. Bien, voy a brincar esta lámina, después yo les puedo pasar esta presentación si alguien la requiere. Tenemos tres grandes tendencias en el mercado. La primera de ellas es ir hacia la nube. A mí me ha tocado viajar por Latinoamérica y prácticamente no hay una sola empresa que no tenga planes para ir a la nube. Porque por la seguridad, por la integridad, por el gobierno, por el costo, por diferentes razones, las empresas están haciendo un outsourcing de su operación de TI hacia la nube y bueno, en esa operación para hacer business intelligence o para hacer algunas aplicaciones operacionales se requiere información en tiempo real. La segunda gran tendencia es la de modernizar el warehouse, el data warehouse. Hemos visto empresas que tienen data warehouse desde hace 10, 15, 20 años, donde ya tienen muchas líneas de código escritas, donde es muy difícil hacer el mantenimiento, sobre todo costoso. Y bueno, están buscando proveer respuestas a través del data warehouse en tiempo real y ya no solo actualizada 7, 10, 15 días antes, ¿no? Para estas aplicaciones también se requiere información en tiempo real. Y finalmente, la siguiente generación de analíticos, lo que es Big Data. Las empresas necesitan analizar estructuras mucho más amplias, necesitan tomar decisiones más rápidamente y más precisamente. Y bueno, aquí en esta parte también ofrecemos nosotros una solución. En las tres tendencias que están de manera global y que se han acentuado en Latinoamérica, están beneficiando la adopción de nuestra plataforma. La siguiente lámina pueden ver del lado izquierdo todas las fuentes, ¿no? Base de datos relacionales, base de datos Data Warehouse, archivos planos, la complejidad del mainframe, software as a service como Salesforce, algunas otras aplicaciones en la nube o en el web y el sistema SAP que tiene pues más de 100,000 tablas, un modelo de datos muy complejo donde la gran mayoría de estas tablas son tablas técnicas. Pocas de ellas tienen información de negocio. Bueno, ahora vamos a ver cuáles son los tres grandes usos que le dan nuestros clientes a nuestra plataforma. El primero de ellos, nosotros le llamamos swim lane o carril, es el de commit. Básicamente aquí movemos información de las bases de datos relacionales a Oracle, SQL Server, DB2, a cualquier base de datos relacional también. Y este es un negocio muy importante para nosotros. Tenemos miles de clientes, lo hemos hecho de manera muy satisfactoria. Y aquí podemos incluir también a lo que son los sistemas de mensajería como Kafka. La siguiente sería lo que es el modelado. Aquí estamos ya hablando de bases de datos de Data Warehouse. Estamos viendo aquí Snowflake, estamos viendo a Redshift, estamos viendo Azure, Google BigQuery, etcétera. Tenemos una interrelación muy estrecha con estos proveedores de Data Warehouse en la nube y es una parte también muy importante de nuestro negocio porque ofrecemos una automatización muy fuerte y es parte de lo que vamos a ver el día de hoy. Y finalmente lo que es la parte de Data Lakes, ¿de acuerdo? Como les decía, tenemos con Amazon pues más de 50,000 bases de datos y en conjunto con las tres grandes hemos migrado más de 100,000 bases de datos a la nube. Desde luego las tres grandes están ahí, Amazon, Azure y Google, pero también tenemos una interacción muy fuerte con los proveedores de Big Data como Hortonworks y Cloudera. Vale mencionar que fuimos galardonados como el partner ISV Independent Software Vendor del año pasado para Hortonworks. Así que pues también es una línea de negocios muy importante. Estos son los tres grandes usos, no quiere decir que no haya más, pero quería compartirlos con ustedes a manera de introducción. La siguiente y última lámina, bueno, aquí abajo nos muestra las fuentes y acá arriba podemos ver la matriz de destinos. Prácticamente estamos soportando todas las funciones que hay en Amazon, en Azure y en Google, en los data lakes, streamings, en las bases de datos warehouse, en las bases de datos relacionales, SAP y archivos planos. Sin más preámbulo, pues yo creo que bueno, aquí es alguna relación un poco más detallada de los servicios que soportamos en las nubes, un poco lo que vamos a estar soportando en el corto plazo para Google, que es PubSub. Bueno, estamos concluyendo esta parte introductoria y voy a dar la palabra a Joel Dodd, que es nuestro Analytics Data Architect, y él es el que va a hacerles la presentación del día de hoy de Compose. Joel, I'm going to make you a presenter right now. Is that okay?
Yes, that works.
Thank you. So you're now the presenter. We can see your screen.
All right. Can you all hear me okay?
We can hear you fine and we can see your screen fine.
Okay, so what I wanted to talk about is really go on beyond what Juan Carlos just talked about to really talk about, you know, really what are we doing to modernize and automate those downstream repositories for your analytical needs. And really, this is really about a comprehensive multi-zone data pipeline where we're really moving that data in that first panel where we say land in making real-time preparation and moving that into the landing zone, for so to speak, and then moving that into multiple zones to prepare the data, assemble the data, model the data, and then automate the delivery of that data into data warehouses and data lakes. And this is for the automated process and the faster time to delivery into the areas where the teams can then build insights and consume those applications and that data as quickly as possible. And that's really how, you know, the Attunity platform is actually building out the automation of that data movement and moving that data as quickly as we can from multiple different sources, any number of different sources, and automating those changes into a landing zone that they can be picked up in the next zone of the data pipeline for automating the assembly, the provisioning of that data, either into data lakes or data warehouses in an automated fashion, to make sure that you're getting that data in standardized formats, that we're consistently updating all of those changes that are coming from your source systems, so that you've got the ability to model and analyze that data as quickly as possible. And that is both, you know, whether it's a data lake or a data warehouse, and then you can then use your consumer tools of choice like Spark or any type of analytic platform to then get access to that data and then build those insights that then get to power your business. And the final piece of this is really around that underlying management of that end-to-end platform to provide you the ability to have alerting, notifications, as well as an end-to-end monitoring and the access to that rich metadata to give you end-to-end lineage of that. And that's really what we're doing within this entire comprehensive data pipeline. So we've kind of already talked about a little bit about the, you know, the different types of sources and targets that are supported here. But in that first landing zone, it's really about how do you speed that those sources into that landing zone in an automated fashion. And what we're doing is we're doing target schema creation, heterogeneous data type mapping, transitioning from batch to change data capture, and propagating any changes. But we're all doing this all in a very simple to use automated fashion, so that a lot of things you would normally do in a manual process are all done for you in an automated way, so that you now can concentrate on just moving to the next phase of that process, which would be modeling that data and getting that data ready for analytics purposes. So in this phase, it's really all about speed and simplicity. How do we speed automate that process of getting that data from all those different sources that Juan Carlos mentioned into whatever your landing zone of choice is, whether that be another database, a data warehouse, or a data lake, or even streaming targets to get that data where you really need to process that and build those modern applications. And the context of this call today, we're really talking about those analytic repositories, either your data lakes or your data warehouses. And what we're doing in this phase is really for data lake automations, we're automating that schema for you. And we're also building a multi-zone approach where you can have the storage of that data and the assembly and provisioning out to those constituents for faster analytic processing. And the whole goal there in both of these cases is making that data analytics ready in an automated quick process. In the data warehouse automation, we're doing a lot of the same things, but it's a little bit different approach really because of your targets. In a data warehouse, you're really looking at more of a model-driven approach where you're really looking at how do I model that data in standard dump-based approach, maybe a third normal form and then downstream star schema warehouse data marts, but doing that again in an automated fashion and delivering that as quickly as you can into those data marts for faster consumption. And this is what we'll kind of show you in the demo today in terms of how do we handle that automation. What are the different phases that we do automate to make sure that you do have that automation of that best-in-class, consistent best practice design, and then automating a lot of things that normally you would do in a very manual process. So how do we get that process automated so that you can then concentrate on what's really going to drive your business value, not necessarily the things that could be automated. So moving that into a operational data store for real-time operational data so you could build your dashboards off that, but then staging that so that you can do additional processes like mapping that data, blending that data set for richer context, adding new attributes. And we'll show you that in the demo so that you now have that third normal form in your data warehouse in a consistent best practice approach, and then automate that into your data marts where your analytics teams can then get value out of that. And the final piece that we talked about earlier is really around that centralized management of that end-to-end pipeline. And we provide operations, control, as well as analytics to understand that how well is that data pipeline working. So giving you visibility into how well that end-to-end process is working, understanding how you can maximize your SLAs for that, and then scale up to thousands of tasks across all of these different processes. Again, the whole process is automating that end-to-end pipeline and simplifying that whole process for you. And the final piece is giving you that end-to-end visibility of the lineage of your data pipeline. So you can see exactly where that data is going to. You can catalog your data sets and actually understand where that data is coming from, so your analytics teams can, again, concentrate on building that insight and value. So let's switch over to a demo to kind of see a little bit of this firsthand. So what we're showing you right now is our pipeline for data warehouses. There's the two pieces of that pipeline we talked about. The first phase was really that landing of the data. And this is where we're really working on concentrating of landing that data in a very efficient and fast process. So it really starts with managing your endpoints, setting up a standard-based approach to how you connect to these endpoints so that you're really not adding any kind of custom agents on these sources or targets. You're really using standard-based interfaces to connect these sources and targets in a very simple and automated fashion. And then providing you the ability to manage what data you're going to process by just pulling in the schemas of those individual systems and allowing you to view easily that data and the tables and the patterns of data that you really want to capture to process into that landing zone. So getting that landing zone in an automated fashion and very fast fashion, of course, back to what your desire is, get that data out into that. So as we run this process, you'll notice what we do is we automate that whole entire process so you can see very quickly how fast that we run these processes and how quickly we can pull this various data over into your landing zone. And we automate just by selecting your sources and targets, exactly when you want to move your data to, and then load that into an automated fashion. And as we move into the next zone of this is really now where you want to prepare that data for analytics purposes. And not only will this first zone handle not only your initial load, but any changes that happen to your source systems are automatically propagated, and any changes get applied automatically to that landing zone. And then we automate those changes into that model and downstream warehouse and data marts so that you can always keep these analytic repositories up to speed and available for your analytics constituents. So this really starts the next phase of our data pipeline, and that's how do you model this, or how do you build out this for that model view in a data warehouse. And it always starts with connecting to those warehouses. In this case, it's now your landing zone of what we just showed you in the first phase of the data pipeline, and then moving into a model phase. And the model, we can actually automatically discover that data directly from those zones. And I'll just show you this. I won't repeat the process, but what you have the ability to is discover exactly what that data is. And we've already kind of finished that process, but allowing you to automate. Again, this is all about the automation of that process. So as I automatically discover that, what we build is a rich schema that shows you exactly how all of this data is related. We can see these key relationships, and we can also see the attributes that we automatically discover about this. We understand the foreign relationships and these models of the data, and we can actually pull in multiple different schemas to build this rich model of our data. From that data, we can then add additional attributes. So we have the ability to come in here and say, I now want to create a new field. For example, if I wanted to create a new total amount, I can now build a rich schema, a rich data type where I'm actually calculating how I want that data to be. And we could actually, so for this case, I'm actually just creating a very simple process where I'm just going to calculate exactly how that total price is so that my analytics teams don't have to do this on every one of their reports. They have access to this data right inside their repository, and we'll automate this process as we load that data directly into that repository. I also automate the testing so I can test this process. And I can ensure that what I'm building is actually going to be the quality of the data that I really want and expect from an analytics perspective. So as we move all this data in, we're going to automatically add those new attributes. We also have the ability here to look up attributes from other parts of that system. So this is really about automating the blending of that data together so that it has that rich analytical model that we just showed you in the graphical picture. But the other thing we do is we automatically map that data to a standardized data warehouse approach, providing all that rich type 2 slowly changing dimensions of data that you'll want for analytics purposes. So for example, in one of these tables, for example, my customer table, you'll see that I have only my key type of information, and all my slowly changing dimensions will come with a from and to date. So we're capturing when data changes so that you can have that data for rich analytical purposes. And we understand that relationship so that we can model how that information will relate into the next phase of this, which is my data warehouse. So once we build a model, we can then move into the ability for you to automate the process of building out the data warehouse. So you can see we automatically can create the tables because we already understand the schema built within the model phase. We can validate the model to make sure that it's in consistence with the data, and then anytime there are changes, we can automate the process to actually update. So you can notice that I've got a schema changes from my existing source system. We added that new total amount, so we can automatically adjust our data warehouse and add that data in so that as we load that warehouse, any new data elements and updates to data elements will automatically adjust in that process. And you get to decide how often and when you want those updates applied. So if you don't want that immediately, you can defer that, or you can actually do that in real time, which is what a lot of people really like these days. They really want that real-time data so that they can get that analytics. And that's one of the problems we see with existing data warehouse strategies today, is that the analytics teams don't get access to data well beyond when they really need that data. So it causes delays in their analytics, delays in their insights. But we automate that whole process so you can get those updates, those new schema information, and any kind of new attributes directly into any phase of this, whether it be the data warehouse or the downstreams data marts. So once we actually create the data warehouse and automate the creation of that, we also automate the mapping of that data from not only the initial load of that warehouse, but also any of the change data capture. We automate the mappings of the data from each phase into the next phase. So in this phase, we're moving from the landing zone into the data warehouse, and you'll see that as we click on any of these mappings that are automatically created for us, we can see that there's an automatic relationship that's showing how this data will flow from the landing zone into our staging zone and then into our data warehouse. And we have the ability to continue to enrich this data at each phase of the, based on our analytical requirements. So we have the ability, for example, to look up data and provide data from different sources. So the ability for you to say, I really want to add additional lookup values. So again, I want to get the data to be analytics ready for my consumers. So here's an example of where we're actually going to look up data from additional places from within our environment. And we're also using this very standard, very easy to use expression builder consistently across the product so that you don't have to learn multiple different tooling or techniques. You're just really using this very easy to use expression builder that simplifies the process of how this is going to work across your process. So in this case, we're actually automating the process of looking up our units in stock from our product table and really providing a join in the background, but we're automating that process. You don't have to know the syntax, where that data is. We're going to automate all that process for you. Additionally, we can allow you to profile that data and understand when you might have quality issues within that data warehouse. So if I look at the profile of the data here, this is actually profiling all the data in my landing zone. So I can understand things like, what are my quantity ranges? In this case, I've got a quantity range from 1 to 70. What are my unit price, as well as what is my discount range? Here I've got a discount range from 0 to 25%. This is where you can collaborate with your business needs that can understand what should be the expected range for this. So if I think that 25% discount is a high percentage, I can go back out and put different quality rules in. If I think there might be a chance that I never should have a quantity less than 1, again, I can put quality rules in the system that can make sure and ensure that I have the data that I need for analytical purposes. So let's look at that next. So if I pull up my data quality rules, you'll see I have either both cleansing rules and validation rules. Now the difference here is that cleansing rules are actually going to change the data if you have certain conditions where I know that, maybe there's certain anomalies with different source systems and I want to correct that data. But validation rules are really where I know that there's certain situations that I want to correct and I want to prevent those from coming in. So here's an example of one where I've said I've got a discount validation where the discount amount is greater than 20%, then I want to accept it and report on it, but I will also want to put a description so that I understand why that issue happens. But I have multiple different ways I can handle this. I could reject and report, I can accept a resort, and I can actually even reject and abort. So I can say, hey, I really don't want it. If I know that there's problems in the data, maybe I don't even want to load that data. I want to stop the process and have somebody investigate that. But multiple different ways. Again, it's all about automation of that data to be analytics ready. Let me show you a little bit about how you would create a new one here real quick. And say I did want to say my quality couldn't be, my quality has to be greater than 1. And this is actually if the condition is false. And in that case, I do want to reject and report. So if I look at my quantity, quantity, greater than 1, again, we're using this very easy to use expression builder. We can parse. And here we're using Boolean logic. So we can see a 0 is coming up true, but a positive situation is coming up as false and true. But now what I can do is I can say exactly what I want to do with that data if it's not going to match the rules. I can either reject it if I think that that data isn't, or if I think it's a condition that maybe there's new products that become into my schema, that I may want to accept that. So again, flexibility in how you want to control the data that flows in, the rules about that data, and again, it's all about getting that data analytics ready. And then you'll notice we now indicate that we've got quality rules set up there. So once we have all of our different quality rules, our mappings assigned, the next thing we do from this case is we automate the process of generating the ETLs for these processes. So I can automatically generate all the rules that would, let me just show you how that works. So I've got a model change here, but I've already pre-done these different rules. But what we've done here is we've automated the process of building out the ETL for this. And let me just show you some of these ETLs. But you'll notice as I work through here, we've created 798 instructions. Here I'm reading from the top here, but 798 instructions that you would have to write manually if you were doing this from scratch, or using some kind of ETL tool that you're actually still manually coding that or doing some type of process that manually creates that load in here. We're doing this and automate this whole process. And some of these, as we start talking about our slowly changing dimensions, you'll see that some of these get quite advanced, but we're automating that entire process. You can see as we walk through some of these, the level of detail that we get into as we're loading this data into this respective downstream data warehouse tables. And we automate the process of running that, and then as we move into that, we also provide reports that show you exactly anything that successfully loaded, as well as any reported errors or reported issues. In this case, we said we wanted to accept the information, but we still wanted to report on it. So these were the scenarios of reported rows that, because the discount validation. So we said our discount couldn't be greater than 20%. And you can see here is all of our discounts that were 25%. So again, allowing our analysts to look at that data and find out if these were legitimate, or if they wanted to go in and make changes to that data so that it was in the right format, or we wanted to go back into the source systems and try to correct problems in upstream systems to prevent larger discounts than should be happening. But then as my data is then loaded into my data warehouse, and again, like I said, we have the ability to load not only our full load, but also our change data, but also the ability to then take that data out of that third normal format and then automate that into a star schema that's much easier for analytical tools to process with. And again, we manage that entire process. We automate the process of creating different star schemas. We create wizards. So if I actually run through a new example, and I won't run through the entire part, but I'll just show you how easy it is to make a new data mart. You start with a star schema, and you can name it anything you want. And different types of schemas based on the types of analytics you're going to run, whether it's transactional, if you want to do some kind of roll-up aggregation, or if you wanted to do something that was more state-oriented, like insurance claims or flight reservations. So you just pick through what type of star schema you want. You pick on which kind of data you want as terms of your facts, your fact tables. And then we can automatically select your dimensions based on your facts as well. You can also override that as well if you wanted to, as well as the ability to add date dimensions to that. So if I wanted to add order dates, ship dates, and required dates, I can then use those date dimensions and how they relate automatically with my existing dimensions. And then I just pick what my transaction date is. So again, we're automating that process and walking you through how to actually create a star schema based on the constituents of who wants that data, how they want to analyze that data, and how that data relates together. But you're not having to build all that data for you, or how that is going to relate together. So once your schema is created, you can validate the schema, you can modify the schema. I could actually create new attributes in the schema. So if I wanted to do something like understand how many days it required something took to ship, I could actually create new rules that says, or a new attribute that automatically calculates that. So every single analytics team then has the ability to look at that data without having to reinvent the wheel every time. Again, we're mapping this logical relationship into that physical star schema for you, automating that entire process. So we can create the tables, we can generate our ETL, and then we can run that data for you. Just like we did in the warehouse, we can do the same capabilities all throughout this data warehouse, and then validations along the way so that you can understand whether you truly have made a standard-based model. So let's look at the one that we've already created. And again, we can walk through some of the ETL commands we create. And again, we're building out all these ETL commands. Again, it's all about automation of getting this data analytics ready in the right format to the right constituents. And you can see, again, we're doing quite elaborate types of automated scripts that you don't have to write from scratch. The final piece that we do is we automate the generation of the documentation for this. And you'll notice we automatically create a zip file of that documentation. So let's go over and take a look at what that looks like. So we're just extracting the zip file so that we can read the contents. And you'll notice what that documentation does is actually builds you a repository of the documentation. It's all based on a HTML format. So all you have to do is publish this out to whatever group you want to expose this to. And then you've got full documentation of exactly what you just built. So I can see the diagrams, I can see the attribute domains, I can see that whole list of categories and attributes that I've assigned, as well as what types of history, whether it's going to be my type 1 or my type 2 slowly changing dimensions. I can see the relationship the tables have, the lineage, and the lineage goes all the way down to my data marts as well. So if I go down to my data mart sets, and you can see we've even got that new data mart that we just created. So it's giving you up to the minute documentation. And we can see all the information for the entire project that we've created. All the way down to any attributes. So any information that the analytics teams need, you no longer have to write custom documentation. We're automating that process as well, so that all you have to do is turn this documentation over to your analytics teams, and they've got one source to really look at the data and understand exactly what they've just been delivered. And this goes all the way down to even understanding the sources and targets that were created for these systems. So and we do these similar type of process for our data lakes. The main difference there is with your data lakes, you're really looking at more of a different construct from a file system and updating those underlying files, and then also using Spark and Hive to build out that metadata and that same level of provisioning of that data down to whatever audience is really going to use that data. So a very similar approach in a lot of cases, just a little bit difference based on the endpoint that you're looking at, whether it's a data warehouse versus a data lake. But very similar processes, very similar even look and feel across those different zones within that data lake or that data pipeline. So this is really showing you how we can do that end to end. And let me just show you one last piece that I'll walk through at the end here. But that's really what we've done within that demo, is we've automated the process of building that standards-based third normal form data warehouse. We've done it in a best practice format, building those third normal forms following standard-based methodologies. We've auto-extracted the loading, the mapping of that data, and now I think this makes a lot more sense now that you've actually seen the product. So loading that, automating of that data from the source systems into the landing zone, and then building out that model of that data into your data warehouse, and then into your downstream data marts, propagating the changes, as well as auto-generating all your transformations as required for the analytics needs. So Juan Carlos, that's really what I wanted to show everyone today from the end-to-end data pipeline perspective.
Excellent demo, Joel, excellent. I have a question for you. In your opinion, how much productivity gain will we get with Compose versus the traditional tools that are in the market?
Well, what the TDWI, sorry, the data warehousing kind of industry group actually talks that you can get this implementation up to 5 times faster. And there's actually a quote at the bottom of this slide that tells what they've been able to determine is automation can do about 5 times faster than traditional approaches. And we've actually seen where some of the customers have actually told us that processes that used to take them 6 months to get through this entire process got them down to a matter of weeks. So it can significantly increase your time to market on building out those data analytics repositories.
Great, great. Significant increase in productivity. Well, at this moment, I don't know if you have any questions. We have a questions panel over there. If you want to write a question in Spanish, we can translate it for you all. We're going to give a few minutes. And as I said, this demo has been recorded and it's going to be posted in Attunity Latin America group in LinkedIn, so you can download and watch it later or share it if you want. Any questions? Yeah. So we have a question from Gilberto Joel. He would like to understand a little bit the CDC component on deeper dive, please. So if you can explain him a little bit about the CDC process.
Yeah, so what we do from a CDC perspective is, and let me go back up to that slide a little bit here. And what we do from a CDC perspective is that we usually just use standard-based technology, like a JDBC or an ODBC connection to connect to those source systems and looking at the transaction logs. And what we do is we read those transaction logs waiting for committed transactions. As committed transactions are committed, we then replicate those over into whatever target system that you've requested. So we're just automatically creating that schema first, then building the data types, and we automate that process of mapping that data. So for example, if you had a mainframe system and different data types within a DB2 on the mainframe or a VSAM file, we'll automatically map that to an Oracle types and then move all that data as those changes are happening, as well as schema changes that get propagated out into whatever target you've selected. Is that kind of answer more, or you've got more specific questions?
Because I can also offer you, Gilberto, if you want us to schedule a session specifically about the replication and CDC process, we'll be happy to do that. So please let us know. Any other questions? I don't know if you have the answer to this, Joel. They are an Oracle shop, and they know that Oracle is removing the log miner functionality. and getting the stream functionality?
Yeah, so what we've done is within our Oracle connectivity, we have an option where you can actually choose Oracle's log miner, or you can use what we've created, which is our own version of how we're going to connect to the transaction logs, and I can actually even show you that here. Oops, I went past it. Sorry about that. So inside of our any type of Oracle connections, if I go back into my tasks and manage endpoints, if I build an Oracle endpoint, I don't believe I have one here, but as a source, you'll notice one of the things that we have in our advanced tabs is the ability for you to, and we actually default to our Attunity log reader, but you can also go back to the log miner. So if Oracle does decide to remove the log miner in the future, we can still use the Attunity log reader, but we can also, we are very, Attunity as a whole is very good with working with different any of the technology companies. For example, Snowflake is one of the latest ones that's come out in the market and been really popular. But we've worked extensively with the Snowflake team to figure out what are the best practices when you want to replicate data into Snowflake. And we do the same thing with Oracle or any of the endpoints that we work with. So we've actually built the Attunity log reader because we saw certain deficiencies in log miner. So we've got our own way, in this case, to actually connect out to Oracle. So this is one of the options to answer your initial question, is if log miner goes away, is there other options? And the first one would be just switching to Attunity log reader.
Okay. We have another question from Esteban. He's asking if they understand that they will have many processes in Attunity. Can they be scheduled with Control-M, for example?
Yeah, so one of the things that we do from the replicate process as well as compose is the ability for you to expose these out as services. And we provide REST APIs that you can then use to do any type of scheduling. Now, we also do provide the ability for you to schedule these as well. So we provide a full rich set of notifications as well as the scheduling within this process as well. But if you do wish to schedule within your own scheduling tool, then you can use our REST APIs to then call out to those services and register or schedule those for example, within Control-M.
Good. So we have a question from Victor regarding Replicate for SAP. And yes, Victor, we're gonna I'm gonna send you a webinar that we did regarding Replicate for SAP, and you will see what is needed to install on the server side. It's a piece of software needed in order to be able to do the CDC processing. I will send you that, and after that, we'll schedule a meeting as needed. Juan Carlos, also, if you need a deeper session about the replication processes and CDC, we're going to schedule it as soon as possible. Joel, what's your experience with Attunity to move large amounts of volumes of information?
Yeah, so we do have, plenty of customers that are moving large amounts of data. And there's multiple different types of architecture as well as different configurations that we support in order to handle that. And that's really back what I was saying around our main management component, is that we also can provide the ability for you to understand the capacity of each of the different components within the data pipeline so that you can scale those out to handle any real-time, large volume data that you really need. And we have multiple different techniques and architectures. And if you've got specific scenarios, we can definitely work with you to help you understand what are the best architectures that can be done. But we've got one example of a Fortune 1000 or 100, automaker that currently replicates 4,500 sources to their data lake. So we've got multiple different examples of customers that are doing very large amounts of data using this data pipeline.
Good. Can Attunity apply business specific rules in the transformations?
Are you talking about tools, transformations that you've already written within a different tooling? Is that kind of the gist of that question?
Yes, that's what.
Okay. Yeah, so what we do provide is the ability for you to tie in, and this is something we didn't show within the demo, but we have the ability for you to set up your own custom workflows on how you want to drive in this process. And one piece of that is the ability for you to build out different, what we call command tasks. Let me go back to this view here, which we can allow you to manage different command tasks. And I don't believe I have one set up yet, but I'll just show you a real quick example. If I had a command task, all I've got to tie into is a script on how I would want to execute that task. And then I can then incorporate that within my workflow. So I can build a custom workflow that says, you know, if I have a command task, I can draw that command task in. And then if I'm doing that between like maybe my CDC and before I build out my data marts, I can just drag and drop and tell it when that I want to drag in that process. So I could just change out when that process would be, excuse me, and show exactly when I'd want that. So if I have something built in something like Talent, or maybe it's something like some other different tool that builds some kind of quality rule or business transformations, it could even be a homegrown, like a Spark process. I could actually just tie in that into that workflow and then tie that into an automated process for me.
Good. Gilberto is telling us we are currently doing an evaluation of replication tools to their ODS and data lakes, and they have considered Attunity among other tools. And their environment has a lot of a huge amounts of data and technical conditions that they have issues with other tools. Yes, Gilberto, we have provided all the information to your procurement division. We are expecting the technical details for the POC, and we are ready to help on that. Thank you. So, Joel, I think these are all the questions that we had. We are almost by the hour, so I'm going to be, as I said, sending you the recording via Attunity Latin America and LinkedIn. And up to this point, I just want to thank you for your participation. Thank you all. Thank you, Joel, for this excellent demo again.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great day, and we'll be in touch. Bye now.